Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. For those of you who are joining me for the first time, Richard Skipper Celebrates, the idea for this show is that I celebrate artists and their body of worth. What makes a great artist? How do they get from point A to point B and beyond? But today I have a very full plate because I will be celebrating Eileen Heckart, Marilyn Monroe, and Luke Yankee. And I'm excited about all three. And Luke, it's so good. I'm so glad that you decided to join me very early in the day for you out on the West Coast.
Not that early. I'm delighted to be here, Richard.
Well, thanks. Before we start, I just want to ask, how are you doing really in the midst of this crazy world that we find ourselves in?
You know, Richard, given the fact that a lot of people are not doing so great, I'm almost embarrassed to say I am thriving. I'm holed up at my place out here in Palm Springs. I'm also a college professor, so I'm teaching remotely on Zoom. And I'm writing. I'm working on a lot of different projects, which I'll tell you about. I'm just doing great.
Well, you know, every time I hear that, I want to jump for joy because so many people are saying, I can't wait for my life to get back. And I say to everyone, this is your life now. And if you don't embrace it, as our dear friend Carol Channing used to say, the parade's going to pass you by. Today marks 244 days, believe it or not, since the theaters shut down. And of course, that's had a ripple effect across the country. What did your calendar look like 243 days ago?
Funny you should ask that. and we haven't planned any of this, by the way. We're all just kind of going with the flow here. This kind of segues into one of the things I know you wanted to talk about is that last year I wrote a play about my mother, Eileen Heckart, and her very intense personal relationship with Marilyn Monroe during the shooting at Bus Stop. And I had just had a couple of readings in New York for Broadway producers at the Manhattan Theater Club. I had some other readings on the West Coast at the Stella Adler Theater, among other places. It was just starting to get a lot of attention and generate a lot of heat. And in fact, it was going to be done at a theater festival. It won the grand prize at a New Works festival in Austin, Texas. And they were going to be doing a production of it down there for local producers and such. And it's just kind of indefinitely on hold. However, part of the reason that just this morning, you're the first person to hear this.
Another exclusive. I love that.
It's definitely an exclusive.
Yes.
And by saying this out loud, I have to commit to it. So all the more reason. Just this morning, I had an incredible brainstorm about how to take what I consider an already strong play and how to make it deeper and richer and much more fuller by adding another character. And the other character, well, it's an actress who would play two characters, who would play Ella Fitzgerald and the African-American actress Rosetta Lenoir.
She was a very close friend of mine.
I was a very close friend of my mom's.
Oh, God, did I love her. And I met her through the Amos Theater Company.
Yes.
When I first arrived in New York, and she took me under her wing, and she used to take me to lunch, and just the most incredible, loving, warm person.
The greatest.
That walked this planet.
The greatest, yes. And some of the people in your audience, I mean, of course, she worked nonstop playing supporting roles on Broadway and that sort of thing. But in later years, she did the series, you probably know, where she played the grandmother.
Yes, Urkel. I can't think of the name of it, where she played Urkel's not grandmother, but grandmother to the other.
The grandmother in the, We all know the show I'm talking about.
Someone's going to tell us what it is.
But she was, and after this incredible career, all of a sudden, at age 70 something, Rosetta is suddenly a television star, and just an amazing lady. So one of the blessings, I guess you could say, of COVID is that I had this epiphany about how to make this play much richer and stronger by adding Rosetta and Ella Fitzgerald as characters into it.
Well, let's go back in your life.
We've jumped way ahead.
No, these people that were real live people in your life. I mean, some people, when they see Marilyn Monroe on screen, or even your mom, they become these ethereal beings that are out there.
Yes.
And one of the things that, I grew up in South Carolina, watched many of your mom's films, and huge fan, by the way. And as I was growing up, you think of these people as being out there. But if you stick around long enough in this business, you get a chance to meet many of these people. And the more you get to know them, the more you realize they are regular people. They have the same fears that we have. Let's go back when with your mom growing up. And I have an incredible photograph that you shared with me with your mom. You also, Luke, are a great writer, you're a director, you're a producer. You have your hand in practically every pot in show business. Perhaps the only thing you haven't done is sumo wrestling, and you may have done that too. I don't know.
No interest.
But let's talk about the earliest moments in your life when you realized that your mom had this career that most moms didn't have.
Well, it took a while before I realized that, Richard, because when I was growing up, even though my mother did lots of work in film and television, where she was really the most at home was on Broadway. And so my family, my parents always lived just an hour outside of Manhattan in New Canaan, Connecticut. And my father was an amazing man, and frankly, a bit of a saint to have put up with all these crazy showbiz people all these years. They were married for 53 years. A lot of times when people hear that my mother was an actress, they'll say, "Oh, how many fathers did you have?" Well, I had one.
I'll tell you what the secret was. He wasn't in show business.
Exactly. And Jack Yankee was a successful insurance man in Connecticut and just thought my mother hung the moon. And I think I was probably about 7 or 8 before I realized that not all of the kids in school sat around watching their moms on television on Saturday night. Mm-hmm. And when I was a kid, it was this crazy kind of anti-MAME sort of upbringing where Ethel Merman taught me how to make a martini at age 10. Paul Newman gave me acting lessons in the living room. Marilyn Monroe babysat my brothers, which I talk about in the play, which we'll get to. And just this, and since my mother was a character actress and played the best friend to, all of those people, I remember as a little boy just sitting at her feet and just drinking in these stories that Teresa Wright was a very close family friend. Mary Tyler Moore in later years became very close with Mom because one of the things that she was most known for on television was playing Mary's Aunt Flo on the old Mary Tyler Moore show. And so I would just sit and drink in these incredible stories. And I knew my mother had no desire to write a book. And I knew that if I didn't do something with these stories, they would be lost forever. So shortly after my mother passed away in 2001, I wrote a book called Just Outside the Spotlight. And
it's available, everyone, on Amazon.
Thank you very much. And I also created a one-man show called Diva Dish, which was actually the precursor to the book, because basically it was a PowerPoint program and had lots of video clips of Mom winning the Oscar and of her with Marilyn and all these people I'm talking about.
Now, I have to ask you, where is the Oscar?
Funny you should ask that.
There it is.
1973 Best Supporting Actress for Butterflies Are Free.
Yes.
And of course, I was fielding calls from reporters all night. I was 13. And I was over in the guest cottage where our Scottish nanny lived, who had helped raise us, and the phone would ring, and I was so pretentious. I mean, the phone was ringing off the hook that night, and I would pick it up, and my brothers would pick up the phone in the main house, and I'd say, "What? Who is it? It's the New York Times. Oh, that's all right. I've got this call. You can hang up. Thank you." And I would do an interview at age 13 for the New York Times. But as I started to say, I realized that if I didn't do something with these stories, they would be lost forever. So I wrote the book, and I created the one-man show, and I've toured literally all over the world, because I've done it on 25 cruises in addition to theaters and all over the place at this point. And it was a really important part of my grief work after my mom passed, and also a way to help keep the legacy alive, which is something that's very important to me.
Now, let me ask, when did you first see your mom as an actress? Was it on television? Did you see her on stage?
I saw her on stage. I saw her on television. That photo that you showed a moment ago of was her on the opening night of Butterflies Are Free. And that's me in my little tiny, you can't really see, I'm in a little tiny tuxedo there. But you
haven't changed a bit, by the way. I love the bangs.
Well, you're considering I was 10, I hope I've changed just a tad. But I hung out in the dressing room a lot, and her dresser was this wonderful Italian earth mother named Alva Gandolfi, and a lot of times I would go into the theater and sort of hang out with Alva during the show and just play backstage and all. And so one night, Mom came off stage after the final scene, and she had tears in her eyes. And I said, "Hi, Mommy." She's like, "Hello, darling." And I said, "Mommy, what's the matter? You seem so sad." And she said, "Well, I am. My child has just told me he doesn't need me anymore." And that was how I first learned what acting was. It's a moment I'll never forget.
Well, going back to that point in your life, did you know that you wanted to pursue a career in this business?
Not really. When I was a little boy, I said, "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to do what you do." And she said, "Oh, honey, I hope you change your mind about that," because she knew how incredibly hard it was. Mm-hmm. And she didn't want me to have some of the heartache that she had had. But I started doing children's theater in the basement of the YMCA when I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. And she would come and critique my performances as if I was Laurence Olivier, which was not easy. But she said to me very early on, she said, "I see great potential in you, and you seem very at home on a stage, and we can handle this in one of two ways. I can either be a supportive mother and show up on opening night with the other parents, or I can make you better, and the choice is up to you." Well, I chose the latter, and it was a very mixed bag. Because she would often just drag on her cigarette and say, "What the hell were you doing up on that stage?" It was for her, and for a 12-year-old, that's kind of tough. It definitely made me a better actor.
So, what was the deciding moment for you that made you say, "This is the path that I'm going to stay on"?
I think it was probably that first performance of playing King Arthur in Camelot at age 12 in the basement of the YMCA, and getting that kind of feedback. The other thing that she did for my opening night of that, because as I said, she said she saw the potential in me. She gave me, a fan had given her a medal, a beautiful sterling silver medal of Saint Genesius, who was the patron saint of actors. And since she grew up, since I grew up Catholic, mm-hmm. and she had converted to Catholicism when she and my father married, not because they were staunchly religious, but they wanted their children to be born with some sense of faith and some sense of spirituality. So my father had been an alt boy and all of that, and really was not that enamored with the Catholic Church. So when she kind of chose that, he was like, "Oh, honey, really? Catholicism? Okay." But the point is, she gave me the St. Genesius medal as an opening night gift for King Arthur in Camelot. and a huge bouquet of flowers. And I really felt like I was being indoctrinated into the club.
Wow. Wow. And with all the hats that you wear, Luke, which one fits you the most comfortably? And which one do you have to work the hardest at?
The acting really doesn't do it for me anymore. It did for a long time, and I studied acting at Juilliard, and I did a number of roles in regional theater. But I think part of that had to do with the fact, Richard, that I felt like I was always being compared to my mother and was always, in an unspoken way, competing with her.
Did you fight that at all, or did you embrace it from the very beginning?
It was some of both, to tell you the truth. But when I started directing, I felt like I was wearing shoes that fit for the first time. Mm-hmm. And I assistant directed 6 Broadway shows, and Hal Prince was a mentor of mine, and he was just an incredible man, and so loving and generous and so kind to me, and referred me for a job as the artistic director of the Long Beach Civic Light Opera when it was one of the biggest musical theaters on the West Coast. It was because of his referral that I got that job, where I ultimately met my husband of 25 years ago. 25 years. So shortly before Hal died, I wrote him and said, "Hal, I owe my marriage to you." So, but yes. So, and then, pardon me. Then with the directing, ultimately, I started writing, and wrote several plays. I now have 6 published and produced plays, and as I said, Marilyn, Mom and Me is just starting to get a lot of attention, and several of the others as well, and. Now I mostly go back and forth between the writing and the directing, and I just was hired since I'm also a college professor now, as I mentioned earlier. I also just recently took on the very daunting task of writing a textbook. I signed a contract with Bloomsbury Press, which is the biggest publisher of theater textbooks in the world, based out of London, and I'm writing a book called The Art of Writing for the Theater. And it will be kind of an introduction to script analysis, theater criticism, and playwriting. So I've been interviewing some amazing people, Stephen Adly Gurgis, who won the Pulitzer Prize a couple years ago, and I'm going to do an interview with Rex Reed and Beth Henley and Ben Brantley from the New York Times. So I'm very excited about the way that's shaping up, among many other projects.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, I want to talk about the evolution of Marilyn, Mom, and Me. Let's go back to the beginning with Diva Dish. When you first started doing that, I realized that you said that it was around the time that your mom was passing away that you decided that you wanted to share these stories with the world. How does one edit themselves from what they will tell and what they will not tell? One of the things that I love about you, Luke, is that you celebrate these people and you honor them and you honor their legacy. And to me, that's very, very important. That's what I'm all about. But how do you edit and, what you're going to put out to the world?
Well, Richard, I think one of the reasons my mother was really adamant about me not writing a book when I mentioned to her that I had that idea before she passed is that she didn't feel I could write a book that wouldn't be salacious and dish a lot of dirt and, just dig some family skeletons out of the closet, which I never had any intention of doing. And that's why I think it's so wonderful that you do this program celebrating these artists, because that's what I wanted to do from the get-go. And I make it clear that it wasn't all a bed of roses. I mean, what family is? But by the same token, I did feel it was important to use your word, to celebrate her and to share these stories about these amazing people and this incredible legacy that I was left. I mean, back when I was acting, I would say to people, I got my best acting lessons in the living room. And and of course, mostly it was my mother. But I remember I was having, when I was doing all those shows in the basement of the YMCA, I was having some difficulty with an actor who wouldn't learn his lines. And Paul Newman, of all people, taught me how to kind of stare him down and make him feel like a jerk so that he would learn his lines. It didn't work as well for me as it did for Paul Newman, but I certainly tried.
I was going to ask how successful that was.
Not really at age, I was probably 13 at the time. But hey, Paul Newman showed me how to do it. I got to try it.
So your book came out of Diva Dish on stage.
Yes. Exactly.
What was your process in terms of, first of all, creating the stage story that you wanted to share, and then putting it on paper?
Well, after my mother died, my brothers and I were going through all of this incredible memorabilia from a career that spanned more than 50 years in show business. And for instance, at one point, my oldest brother, Mark, would say, "Hey, Luke, what's this picture?" And I'd say, "Oh, I love that picture. That's from the time Mom was hanging out on the set with Clark Gable." "Well, when was Mom ever on a set with Clark Gable?" "Oh, you remember that amazing story she used to tell about when she was filming Hot Spell with Shirley Booth and Mervyn LeRoy was directing, and Mervyn knew what a huge Gable fan Mom was, so he invited him to drop by the set, and Mom just sat there drooling over Clark Gable the entire time?" And my brother said, "No, I never heard that story." And I realized, Richard, I was the only one who knew all of these stories. I was the keeper of the flame.
And why was that? Do you have any idea on that?
Maybe because I was the gay son. Maybe because I just had an affinity for history and stories, and I knew that they were important from a very early age, and I knew that they were something that needed to be chronicled and needed to be remembered. So I started scanning these photos and I put together a very crude little presentation with some video clips, etc. I got together about half a dozen of my theater savvy friends in my living room, and I gave them all notepads. I said, "Take notes, tell me what works, what doesn't." And so they sat there and gave me feedback, and they said, "Luke, you're sitting on a gold mine. You need to develop this." And one of the elements of the piece is that I have a list of about 25 names in the program, and towards the end of the play, I would bring up the house lights and say, "Shout out a name and I'll give you the dish." And I would rattle off these incredible stories about Bob Fosse, Martha Stewart, LBJ, and all that were people that either I had connected with or my mother had connected with, or both. And people, the very first time I did the show, a wonderful casting director and a very prominent lady in show business named Marilyn Henry, who used to be the head of casting daytime at ABC, and has since written several wonderful books about how to break into show business. Mm-hmm. She said, "This has got to be a book. I want to be able to read about the people I didn't get to ask about. And I want to talk to my publisher at Backstage Books." And it was a gentleman named Mark Glubke, who wonderful editor and publisher and wonderful man, and who did the Fireside Theater books that some of your readers may remember, where they were hardcover editions of recent plays. And Mark, as fate would have it, happened to be a huge fan of my mother's. And so the first publisher I approached said, "Yes, here's a contract."
That's amazing. Now, I probably know the answer to this, but who was the one personality in your mom's life that people wanted to know the most about?
Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe. I thought so. And let's go back to when your mom and Marilyn met on the set of Bus Stop. And then we're going to show a clip from your play.
Terrific.
But, there's a line in the movie that your mom says. And to me, it captured your mom's entire character in that one moment. And I will never forget sitting in the audience at the Regency Theater here in New York, watching the film in real CinemaScope, and your mom going to Marilyn, "Oh, honey." And of course, I can't do it like your mom did it, but I said that captured her whole character on what she thought of her and everything. But we're going to show this clip, which the two actors...
Let me set it up a little bit, if I may. My mother had, to the day she died, she had two sets of stories about Marilyn. and about their time together on Bus Stop. And one was about this woman who was very unprofessional, coming to the set late, not knowing her lines, all the stories, one has heard. And the other, my mother could never tell without bursting into tears, about this woman who was desperate to be loved, desperate to have a child, and who was always looking over her shoulder for the next starlet who was going to come along and replace her. And
if I can jump in here for just a moment, and also at this point, Marilyn had left Hollywood for a while, had gone to the Actors Studio in New York, was working desperately to be considered a serious actress.
Yes.
And so all of those things were swirling around in her psyche as well.
Absolutely. And Bus Stop was the first film that she had done after she started studying with Lee Strasberg, where she had become really the poster child for method acting. And for those in your audience who don't know what that is, it's where you really, you feel a role very organically and everything must come from within you. You can't kind of fabricate anything. So since my mother was playing Marilyn's best friend in the film, now that Marilyn was the poster child for the method, she was determined to make my mother her best friend. So they had this, and Mom's like, okay, I'm this Broadway character actress, and who's this starlet who's sort of glomming onto me, and it sort of creeped her out at first. Not that she didn't like and appreciate Marilyn, but she was determined to be her best friend. And my mother played everything very close to the vest. And so finally, these two women kind of bonded through their wounds and realized that they were both adopted, and as a result never felt wanted or loved, and never really felt a part of the club for as much as they achieved. And here Marilyn was at this point the biggest star in the world, and she wanted what my mother had. She wanted a stable marriage, she wanted children, and she wanted to be respected as a legitimate actress. And, it was just so ironic to me. And the more I started researching this, Richard, the more I realized how many incredible similarities there were between these women who on the surface were polar opposites. And so that really is what the play is about. And where the me comes in, since it's called Marilyn, Mom, and Me, it basically gets into, because of the fact that my mother was because of the issues she had because of being an adopted child, and never feeling that there were certain things that she just didn't know how to give. It is how that affected my relationship with her and how it affected our dynamic. So it's really using the story of my mother's relationship with Marilyn to tell, to share some basic truths about mother-son dynamics, and ours in particular.
And, and first of all, here's a photograph of Marilyn and your mom and you and your brother. But I also want to let everyone know, if you happen to be listening to this on the podcast later, you can go to YouTube and you'll be able to see this clip on the YouTube presentation of this interview. So this is from Marilyn, Mom, and Me. And this is a Zoom production.
Yes.
That we just recently did, just to let everyone know about that. So
yes.
Here it is.
Eileen, do you think that I could speak with you for a moment?
Sure.
Well, since we're playing best friends in the film, and since Vera is really Sherry's confidant, it would really help me with my character if I could get to know you better. If we could be pals.
Okay.
You see, well, I don't have very many girlfriends. Most women don't seem to like me very much. Can't imagine why. And you and I could share secrets the way best friends do?
Sure.
Gosh, I can't tell you what that means to me. To have a friend that I respect as much as I do you. After all, I already told you about AM. He's the love of my life.
Very happy for you, honey.
How long have you been married?
12 years.
12 years? Wow. And your husband's totally devoted to you?
The greatest thing that ever happened to me.
And you have 2 little boys? I bet you make a big fuss at Christmas.
Oh.
Lots of Christmas presents and a visit from Santa and a tree.
Well, it's a little over the top. Christmas is my favorite time of year.
Mine too. People just naturally seem kinder to each other.
They do.
All that. Gee, plus a successful Broadway career. You have everything I want. Can I ask you something? Why does Josh call you Heckey?
It's a nickname I've had since high school.
And do you like being called that?
Nobody's ever asked me that. It's just a name that kind of stuck.
But do you like it?
I hate it. I've always hated it.
Sounds like someone who works in a deli on 2nd Avenue. Or one of Arthur's cousins. Eileen is such a pretty name. It means brightness or light. It's a derivative of Helen. Like Helen of Troy, the face that launched 1,000 ships.
I think that's more your department than mine, honey.
I know just how you feel about names that stick. In high school, a boy called me the girl. And that was when I was still Norma Jean, long before my initials were MM. I thought it made me sound cheap. But all the boys started calling me the girl, and well, there was nothing I could do about it. I was going to ask you if I could call you Heckey too, but see, now I wouldn't dream of it. Oh, I have a present for you.
For me?
Well, isn't your birthday coming up in a few days? I know it's not polite to talk about a girl's age, but since we share secrets, I know you're going to be 37. Happy birthday.
Marilyn reaches into her purse and pulls out a small gift-wrapped box.
That's very sweet, but you didn't have to. Oh my God,
It's the pearl and sapphire earrings, just like the ones that I was wearing at the reading. Well, I know you admired them. So I called Cartier and I ordered you a pair.
Marilyn, this is far too extravagant. I can't accept this.
Oh, please. No, it would break my heart if you didn't. I mean, after all, now that we're best friends, let me put them on for you.
Marilyn puts them on Eileen and holds her face tenderly.
They're beautiful, just like you. Happy birthday, Eileen.
Wow, what an amazing scene, and 2 phenomenal actresses.
Phenomenal. The actresses are Laura Gardner playing Eileen and Alicia Soper playing Marilyn. And they have been with this piece from the beginning, and they're extraordinary.
And did you direct this as well?
I did, yes.
Because, I mean, what they both bring out are these qualities that both actresses had.
Yes, exactly.
And it's just amazing. So kudos to both of them.
Thank you. Yeah, Alicia has been playing Marilyn at Universal Studios as one of the, characters for years. And a lot of times those people who do those characters, they have the look, but sometimes they aren't really strong actors. Well, Alicia has it all. She is an amazing actress. In fact, she played Marilyn in a cameo in Ryan Murphy's feud about Betty Davis and Joan Crawford. And she's just an extraordinary actress. And Laura Gardner is kind of a staple in West Coast and in regional theater. And one of my plays was recently done at a festival up in Alaska, a New Works Festival. And Laura is very involved in the Last Frontier Theater Festival. And I saw, because people said, who are you ever going to get to play your mom? And I saw her do a reading of another play, and I went, that's Mom. And she was constantly contacting me saying, send me Playhouse 90, send me her episode of Mary Tyler Moore, send me this, send me. She did so much research. It was just incredible. And I think they're both absolutely brilliant.
Now, I want to ask you, have you done any work, or have you been called upon or anything to do anything with TCM?
I haven't. I knew Bob Osborne. He was a lovely man, and we had spoken about stuff. I would love to do some stuff with TCM. I've done several interviews, books about Marilyn, and among other people. But because also my mother worked with Betty Davis and as we said, kind of all of the greats. But no, I haven't been approached by TCM, but that's one of the things on my bucket list.
Well, I want to ask another question about Marilyn, because this persona is so ingrained in our psyches.
Yes.
What was she like when the cameras weren't rolling, or was she always on?
No, I don't think she was always on. In fact, she kind of hated doing film work. And because of the fact that she felt she had to feel everything so organically, as I mentioned earlier, it made it very difficult for her. And a lot of people don't know how smart she was. She was really a very, and self-taught. Constantly reading, Dostoevsky and these very, dense books, etc. And she really was. She really was very down to earth and amazing with my brothers. My older brother Mark and I, little tiny boys on the set at the time, and she wanted. I really don't remember because I was so little, but she desperately wanted a child, and so one of the things that she would do is that when they were filming on location in Phoenix, Marilyn had the top floor suite, and my mother's suite was one floor below. So she was constantly being sent these elaborate gift baskets by studio types who were trying to curry favor with the biggest star in the world. And she would take the grapefruits and the oranges out of the gift baskets and call down to my brother and me on the balcony below, and she would play catch with us using the grapefruits and oranges as our only sports equipment. But needless to say, at 2 and 4, we weren't very good catchers. So my mother would be in the other room on the phone with my father. She'd say, "Oh, for God's sake, Marilyn's playing catch with the boys again. And guess who's going to have her raggedy ass down at the pool at 2 a.m. picking up all those grapefruits and oranges?"
And, beyond Bus Stop, is there a particular role that you feel that captures the Marilyn that you knew better than any other character that she did on film?
Well, a lot of people have said that they really felt, Bus Stop was her best role and her strongest acting. And she was devastated that she didn't get an Oscar nomination for Bus Stop, especially when Don Murray did. That kind of right, because they didn't have the strongest relationship. Lovely man, and he was wonderful in the part, but she had other casting ideas in mind. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Tell me after the cameras start rolling.
But no, and I agree that it's an incredibly strong performance. And at the end of the film, you had talked about when Mom says, "Oh, honey," there's a moment where the two of them are in the dressing room together that I think just epitomizes Marilyn. And she just, because here she is working at this truck stop cafe as a singer and as a chanteuse, and trying to succeed. And there's this moment where she looks at my mother with tears in her eyes. And in fact, this is the last line of the play, where she just looks at my mother with tears in her eyes and she says, "All my life, I've just been trying to be somebody." And I think that kind of says it all.
Wow. Well, I'm going to ask the same question about your mom. Out of all the roles that she's done, what role do you think captured your mom the best as far as you knew her as a mom? and the at-home Eileen Heckart.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, one of her let's see. It's kind of hard to say because, I mean, there were so many when you think of a career that spanned more than 50 years. And going back to some plays that are now classic, like the original production of... I'm sorry?
How many films did your mom do altogether?
She did I'm guessing somewhere around 15. And countless television.
Oh, lots of television.
So much television. And, like I said, going back to Playhouse 90 and some of those things. But plays like A View from the Bridge, The Dark at the Top of the Stairs, Picnic. I mean, some real classic plays. And she was kind of a muse to William Inge, who wrote Picnic.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, he wrote the role of Lottie Lacey in The Dark at the Top of the Stairs with her in mind. And that also was a role for which she was very popular. And then when it came time to do the film, there were delays and scheduling problems. So finally, the director, Delbert Mann, came to her and said, "Okay, honey, we're ready to start shooting. We'll go into pre-production next month." And she said, "Well, have a great time. I'm 6 months pregnant." And she was pregnant with me, which was why she couldn't do the film. So Eve Arden wound up doing that role in The Dark at the Top of the Stairs. But to answer your question, Richard, one of her signature roles, obviously, was Butterflies Are Free.
Mm-hmm.
And although she wasn't that sort of uptight matron, I mean, she certainly had that wisecracking sense of humor. Probably the role that I think most epitomized her was Mary Tyler Moore's Aunt Flo. I mean, just that sort of wisecracking, oh, honey. She played a lot of those kinds of parts. And the role for which she was received the most recognition was the original production of Kenneth Lonergan's The Waverly Gallery, when it was done off-Broadway. And as many of your listeners will know, your viewers, it recently had a Broadway revival with Lucas Hedges and Elaine May. Elaine May won the Oscar for it. I'm sorry, won the Tony for it.
Tony.
And but originally it was done off-Broadway at the Promenade Theater, starring my mother. And at age 81, she won more awards for a single performance in a single season than any actress in theater history.
That's amazing.
She received her honorary Tony, the Lucille Lortel Award, the Drama League, so many awards at age 81. And so when she got cast in that role, and a very, very difficult play about a woman's descent into Alzheimer's disease. And it's written the way an Alzheimer's patient speaks. So it was a devastating performance, just a devastating performance. And as you watch this woman's decline. And so it was one of the most difficult things she ever had to learn, because it was all, a lot of it was kind of gibberish and nonsense. But when she got the script, she said, "This is my swan song. I want to go out with a bang. This is the last play I'm going to do. And this is going to be it." And when she told me that, because we were very close, I had sort of a funny feeling and sort of a premonition. But then within a year after the Waverly Gallery closed, she was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer and passed away.
Wow. How long after that?
She was done.
Well, God bless her, and God bless you. Now, you have another project that I want to talk about, and that's Star Maker. Tell us a little bit about that, and I also have another clip we're going to share.
Thank you so much. Confessions of a Star Maker is a piece that I originally wrote as a TV pilot, and about the dark underbelly of Hollywood in the 1950s.
You mean there is one?
Well, surprise.
Yes.
So I started developing this piece, and I kept getting this feedback of people saying it won a number of awards, and it was a finalist for the Sundance Episodic Lab, which is a very prestigious television writing lab, and a lot of great programs. And people kept saying to me, "Great script. Nobody's ever going to do a piece about old Hollywood, but it's a great script." And then, of course, Ryan Murphy comes along.
Ryan Murphy, yes.
And does Hollywood. But if you're Ryan Murphy, you can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And God bless him that he had such success with it. But so I rewrote it as a play. and it won some awards at some New Works festivals and such. And then one of the places I teach is Cal State Fullerton, and the chair of the department, Dave Mickey, is a wonderful man and a dear friend, came to me and said, we're looking for something we could do in the age of COVID. And can you think of a script that could be done as a live Zoom radio play with a Foley artist and all of that sort of thing? And I thought, and it had never occurred to me to do this piece in that format. But, and of course, the students, their characters based on Marlene Dietrich and Natalie Wood and the young Rock Hudson, etc. And, you know, these students didn't know who any of those people were. Well, they learned, and I taught them. And a wonderful friend of mine, an Emmy-winning actor named Brian Rohan, who's a real authority on old Hollywood, who also parenthetically plays my character in Marilyn, Mom and Me, came in and lectured them on old Hollywood, and it's just gotten a tremendous response. And in fact, we're in the editing process right now, and it will be available on a digital platform in about 3 weeks' time. And it's been tremendous fun, and just, you know, educating the students about old Hollywood, and also finding a home for this play that I've been working on in various capacities for a long time.
Now, do we need any additional setup for the clip that I'm going to show?
I don't really think so. It's a movie premiere at Grauman's Chinese Theater. And one of the character they're discussing is a gay actor who, of course, is playing straight for the film he has just done. And the actors in the scene are Yoni Kruvy as the agent, Lexi Watkins as his tough assistant, Bernice. Let's see.
Fun character.
What's that?
I said a fun character.
Yeah, definitely a fun character. Ronan Walsh is Scott Guy, who's the actor who's in the film. And the other role is Jojo Kelly, who plays the sort of up-and-coming young young star.
And here it is, Confessions of a Star Maker.
Nick stands with Bernice and Lance in the courtyard of Grauman's Chinese Theater. Scott Guy is among the crowd, signing autographs.
What a night.
Get used to it, kid.
Scott was great in the picture.
He was almost convincing in that love scene with Kim Novak.
What do you mean?
He didn't kiss her like a real man.
Excuse me? He is a real man.
Don't talk soda water. There was something about the way he held her, just wasn't natural.
Not a word to Scott.
Of course not. You think I'm smoking jazz cabbage?
Hey, that's not a bad idea. You got some?
Who wants to know?
What's jazz cabbage?
Dope. Reefer, joy smoke?
You mean marijuana?
Oh, brother.
So long, folks! Tell all your friends to come see the picture!
Congratulations!
You were great, Scotty. Wasn't he, Bernice?
I got no words to describe it.
How'd you like the love scene?
Well, my boyfriend never kissed me like that.
Really?
Not even once.
Gosh. Thanks, Bernice.
Wow. I've never heard of jazz cabbage until now.
I don't know where I came up with that. I pulled that one out of some obscure reference, and I thought smoking jazz cabbage.
You know, and the way that she says, well, no one ever kissed me like that. Just the zinger that you need for that scene. Very well written.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I love, I'm sorry.
How many projects are running around in your head right now?
Oh my goodness, quite a few. But I just a word or two I want to say about Confessions of a Star Maker. The one person I neglected to mention, Jordan Mills, who plays the lovely woman who plays the radio announcer at the top of the clip, who's a vital part of the process. But it was such fun exploring this and really teaching these students about old Hollywood and about all these things that I love so much. And yeah, as I said, I'm really excited to have found a home for this project, and it will be available in a few weeks online, and I'd love to have some of your viewers check it out. It's a really, and
when you're ready, post it on my timeline on Facebook. Don't even ask, just put it there, and we will get it out there. I grew up in South Carolina.
Right.
I'm a product of 60s and 70s television. And I always, long before I came to New York, had this love of old Hollywood. And I remember in 1974 when That's Entertainment came out. And then I was reading something recently, and think about this. When That's Entertainment came out in 1974, it had only been 20 years since Gigi had come out, which we don't think about. And you look at that iconic era in Hollywood.
Yes.
And of course, if we go back 20 years ago, I don't think we're going to have the same nostalgic feel that we do have for old Hollywood. So I want to ask you, from a professor's point of view and these students, how enthusiastic are they about that time in Hollywood history?
That's a really good question. There will always be some of them who really get it.
Mm-hmm.
But and a lot of them just kind of aren't that familiar with it. But once you introduce them to it, and one of the things that's really important for me, Richard, as an educator and really as a person, is making sure that these things are not forgotten, and that people do have a sense of their history and of what came before. I remember a student came in to audition for me for a musical, and this was a couple of years ago, and he said, yeah, I'm going to sing a song from this really old show called Rent. And I just, what do you say? What do you do? So, because to them, it is an old show. But
and it is.
Yeah, exactly. So I think just giving them a sense of what came before, as I said, give them a sense of the legacy that was created. It's really important to me.
And I want to remind everyone, your book is Just Outside the Spotlight. It is available on Amazon. What would you like the takeaway to be from people who read your book?
One of the things that comes to mind is that I tell this very funny story about my mother having a yard sale, my family having when they moved out of the childhood home. And my editor, brilliant man named Gary Sunshine, I adore him.
Great name.
And he said, yes, isn't that a great name? And Gary said, nobody's going to believe that Eileen Heckart would have a yard sale. I was like, why? She did. and I guess the takeaway would be, yes, she was this, I guess one could say, somewhat iconic character woman who worked with every major celebrity of the last 50 years. And, we haven't even talked about another project she was so well known for, which is The Bad Seed, which has a tremendous following.
Movies the other night.
Indeed. They always showed around Halloween. But really, it's, she used to say, I'm a wife and mother first. And that was very true. Now, there were times that she would always say up in Connecticut, oh, honey, nobody knows who I am up here. I'm just plain Mrs. Yankee. Well, there were times that Mrs. Yankee and Miss Heckart would definitely intertwine and intersect in some rather humorous ways. Like, when she's going to the supermarket in a full-length mink coat with a pair of dark glasses and a cigarette holder and a copy of Variety tucked under her arm to read in the checkout line. She's like, oh, honey, I'm just plain Mrs. Yankee. No, nobody knows who I am. Really? I mean, there were moments like that, to be sure. But, again, the heart and soul of this book and the heart and soul of Marilyn, Mom and Me is this very loving, complex mother-son relationship that ultimately is about the love.
That's wonderful. Well, I can't believe this, but we are at the end of our program. And this is a conversation that I've been wanting to have for a long, long time. So I'm glad. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend this morning with me. Before we sign off, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's program. If you did, please go to my website, which is richardskipper.com. Sign my guest book, if you haven't done so already, with your thoughts about the show. That helps to boost me in other markets. I want to let everyone know that tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock, I'm going to be sitting down and having a conversation with Dory Berenstein. She's a documentarian. I worked with her on the documentary on Carol Channing. She is a wonderful Broadway producer, and she has this love of the theater that's infectious, and I can't wait to celebrate her tomorrow. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. So today, what I would like everyone to do is to go to your Facebook friends list, pull up the second name that pops up. I already know who I'm going to do this for. And I want you to order 2 copies of Just Outside the Spotlight. You keep one for yourself and you send one to your second friend on Facebook. And let them know about this show and about the work that Luke Yankee is doing. You can see his website on the bottom of the screen. Please visit the screen and keep up with everything he's doing. Now, before we end the show, I give you the final word. Anything you want to say about anything we discussed, anything that we didn't discuss that you wish that had come up, or just any message that you want to put out to the world right now. Luke Yankee, thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you so much, Richard. I think it's wonderful that you do this. And, you know, these are really crazy, turbulent times. And I just feel that it's really important that, as you say, we do little kindnesses for other people. You know, we maintain our sense of respect for one another. And basically, you know, during the bubonic plague, Shakespeare created King Lear. Some of the greatest art comes out of times of struggle. And I think it's really important to remember that, to keep in touch with your loved ones, to remember what is most important during these challenging times. And for me, I think the most important thing is love, and the love that we can share with other people and give to other people.
And thank you. Thank you for that. Make it a great day, everybody. And I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.